Today, I will be recapping the 2020 Dallas Cowboys season from start to finish, starting with the offseason and finishing with the final snap that was played in the regular season. I hope you guys enjoy this, but before we get straight into it, please make sure to leave a like, as well as subscribe if you're new for more Cowboys content for me in the future, and most importantly, hit that notification bell. By hitting that notification bell, you will be notified when I post new content or go live in the future. With that out of the way, let's get straight into today's video. So the Cowboys in 2019 finished 8-8, and they needed to make a decision on longtime head coach Jason Garrett. Would they retain him or let him walk? The Cowboys ended up letting him walk after his failures of getting this team a championship, or hell, even getting past the second round. The Cowboys under Garrett were unable to get past the divisional round and develop some form of consistency, whether it be winning division titles or getting into the playoffs. The Cowboys managed to stay relatively mediocre to good while under Garrett's tenure, and during this time they were able to transition from longtime Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo to now Dak Prescott, managing a easy transition from one quarterback to another. This is very important because after 4 years of Dak Prescott under Jason Garrett, things weren't going anywhere. Sure, the Cowboys had won 10 plus games in 2 of those seasons, 13-3 in Dak's first season and 10-6 in Dak's third season, but ultimately the Cowboys weren't getting it done. They decided to go with Mike McCarthy over Marvin Lewis, the two people that they interviewed, because they wanted a head coach with NFL experience. The main reason for that is because they believed that the team was very close to putting it all together to end up contending for a championship in 2020 if they managed to get the right head coach. They didn't believe that Lincoln Riley or an Urban Meyer or any other college coach was necessary, because they think that if we can get the right guy in there, we will be fine. So they settled on Mike McCarthy, who, longtime Packers head coach, had won a championship, multiple playoff appearances and wins. He was one of the most NFL experienced guys out there if you were looking for him or looking for that. And so the Cowboys ended up settling on Mike McCarthy. Now, after Mike McCarthy was officially hired, it was then the whole coaching staff starting to come together before we got into the initial offseason. They decided to retain Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. They brought on plenty of other coaches, such as Jim Tom Sula for defensive line coach, Mike Nolan for defensive coordinator, Joe Philbin for offensive line, and John Fossil, special teams coordinator, and all this other stuff. The reason why this is important is because now that the Cowboys have a new coaching staff, many of us thought that maybe it was just we needed a right coaching staff for this team to really get over the top. Now, going into the offseason, the Cowboys needed to make a decision on what they should do with many of their free agents. The Dallas Cowboys had 3 major free agents they needed to decide what they were going to do with. Those involved quarterback Dak Prescott, wide receiver Amari Cooper, and cornerback Byron Jones. Many people thought Byron Jones was the odd man out, mainly due to the fact that, hey, he hasn't gotten any turnovers, he hasn't been a playmaker, but he's been a shutdown corner. So the Cowboys decided to do the following. They decided to franchise tag Dak Prescott after they couldn't get a long-term deal. Then they decided to sign Amari Cooper to a 5-year, $100 million contract, and they let Byron Jones walk to go sign with the Dolphins. In terms of re-signings, the Cowboys managed to retain Cooper Rush, as mentioned, Amari Cooper, Blake Jarwin on a 3-year deal, Joe Looney, Adam Redmond, Antoine Woods, Sean Lee, Justin March, Joe Thomas, Anthony Brown on a 3-year deal, CJ Goodwin, Darian Thompson on a 2-year deal, and LP Ladouceur, longtime long snapper. In terms of departures, they saw Tavon Austin go, Randall Cobb, Devin Smith, longtime Cowboy Jason Witten, Cameron Fleming, Xavier Su'a-Filo, and unfortunately, one of the bigger blows to the Cowboys was they had Travis Frederick, longtime All-Pro, Pro Bowl center, retire at age 29, and this definitely set the Cowboys back in terms of having good offensive linemen, but we'll get into that momentarily. They also saw Michael Bennett retire, Kerry Hyder leave, Jalen Jelks, Robert Quinn left to the Chicago Bears on a massive deal, Malik Collins, Christian Covington, Daniel Ross, Ray Armstrong, Christian Covington, Malcolm Smith, as mentioned, Byron Jones, Donovan Olumba, they didn't re-sign, Kevon Frazier, Jeff Heath, and Kai Forbath, all of which left the team. That is a lot of departing free agents. And you might be saying to yourself, why do you even have to mention all these? The reason why is because this is a massive turnover on roster for seeing these many people leave. In terms of who they brought in, they managed to bring along Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback. They brought in Blake Bell, Cameron Irving, Everson Griffin, Alden Smith, Dontari Poe, Gerald McCoy, those two being the key hallmark free agents for the Cowboys. Maurice Kennedy, Brandon Carr, ironically, they brought him back for a little bit, Daryl Worley, Clint Diggs, and Greg Zuerlein. With these, a lot of people thought that the Cowboys really didn't need a lot of help. They just believed that if we can just get a couple guys in here, we will be able to put this thing over the top. So, going into the draft, many people thought that, hey, the Cowboys could use some defensive help. They were looking at guys like Kalavion Chason, as well as A.J. Terrell, and plenty of other defensive help. But little did they know that one of the most touted wide receiving prospects in CeeDee Lamb would drop to pick 17, and as a result, the Cowboys decided to select him. CeeDee Lamb ended up becoming one of the most intriguing picks of the draft, mainly due to the fact that he fell that far down in the draft, considering that other teams needed receivers, and more importantly, the prospect of having three number one wide receivers on a team for your quarterback was something that many people were mesmerized with. Team 40 Burger was taking a flight and all this other stuff. But it was more important to look at what else the Cowboys took. In the second round, they took Travon Diggs, a cornerback that many saw as a first-round prospect, but he fell into the second round, as well as Neville Gallimore, a solid defensive tackle prospect out of Oklahoma, Reggie Robinson, a cornerback prospect out of Tulsa, Tyler Biadasz, a center out of Wisconsin, many people thought as the Travis Frederick replacement, Bradley and Knight out of Utah, many thought was a steal, and Ben DiNucci, a developmental quarterback out of James Madison. When you look at this draft class at the time, many people thought that, hey, the Cowboys did very well in terms of the value they got, and I would agree with that. As the 2020 season went on, and I understand that we're jumping the gun here before we get to it, but analyzing this draft class, the Cowboys did very well with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a pretty solid season for the circumstances that occurred. Travon Diggs, he had a solid rookie season. Neville Gallimore, looked like he's becoming something. Reggie Robinson, we haven't seen a lot of. Tyler Biadasz looked solid when he started. Bradley Knight, we haven't seen a lot of. And Ben DiNucci actually started a game for the Cowboys, and we'll get into that whole fiasco there. But when it came down to all of this, the Dallas Cowboys came away with a pretty solid draft haul. Now, going into the 2020 season, once again, the key notion was the Cowboys just needed to retool a couple things and they would be able to contend for a title. Many people believe that they would have won the division and all this other stuff. But most importantly, this season was rocked by the pandemic that canceled the preseason, very much limited a lot of the functions that took place, like training camp and other things. So many people believe this was something that held back the Cowboys. However, there are some teams that had first-year head coaches that did significantly better, but that's besides the point. So going into their first game, the Dallas Cowboys would face the Los Angeles Rams, not playing a single snap of football, like preseason type of stuff, at all. So when they went into the LA Rams' new stadium, it was a close game. The Cowboys went back and forth with the Rams, and unfortunately, they ended up losing 20-17. This game was hallmarked by an interesting decision by Mike McCarthy to go for it on fourth down rather than just taking the points and maybe going into a tie game. Another thing was there was a play in which Michael Gallup got called on offensive pass interference, negating a 47-yard pass from quarterback Dak Prescott, which odds are would have made the Cowboys won the game or at least sent the game into overtime. So that was something that really stung with the Cowboys, but they started the season 0-1. Moving on to week 2 versus Atlanta, the Cowboys were completely flabbergasted in terms of what the hell was going on as they started the game in a 20-0 deficit. With that, they ended up starting to fight back into the game, and eventually at halftime were down by 19 points. The Cowboys managed to pull the game to within 5 before Atlanta managed to put some points up to go up 39-24. Late in the fourth quarter, the Cowboys then scored 16 unanswered points, which prevented the Cowboys starting 0-2. This involved Greg Zuerlein's famous watermelon kick, which allowed for the Cowboys to drive down the field and kick the game-winning field goal. This is interestingly enough, the first time Dallas successfully kicked an onside kick since Week 17 of the 2014 season. So now the Cowboys improved to 1-1 on the season, and it was also the first time that an NFL team allowed at least 39 points and won without any defensive takeaways. Moving into week 3, many people believed that this was going to be a shootout amongst two of the top quarterbacks in the NFC between Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson, and that was the case. The Dallas Cowboys went back and forth with the Seattle Seahawks, managing to take the lead late with a field goal going up 31-30. However, the key thing that this basically encapsulated the entire Cowboys season was porous defense allowed for the Seahawks to take the lead late, and as a result, the Dallas Cowboys would end up losing this game 38-31 to drop to 1-2. Moving into week 4, the Cowboys looked to try and bounce back versus the Cleveland Browns. Initially, they had no answers for the Browns' rushing attack. Yes, while the Cowboys did end up opening hot out of the gate with Dak Prescott torching the Browns in the first quarter, the Browns ended up scoring 34 unanswered points, making the Cowboys trail by an insurmountable lead. However, it did possibly look like that the Cowboys would come back again. They managed to score 24 unanswered points to make the score 41-38 late in the fourth quarter. However, with the Browns' late touchdown by Odell Beckham Jr., it managed to put the game out of reach, and as a result, the Cowboys dropped to 1-3 for the first time in quite some time, also being the first time since 1994 that the Cowboys lost to the Cleveland Browns. Going into week 5, the Dallas Cowboys were looking to avoid a 1-4 start to their year against the rival New York Giants. It was their first division matchup of the year, and as a result, the Dallas Cowboys would go into this game having to do the same thing they did previously. Attempt to come back from a deficit they got into, and they managed to do so. They managed to get up on the Giants 24-20 at the half after Dak Prescott received a touchdown from Cedric Wilson, and in this game, it would change the complete outlook of the season. In the third quarter, as the Cowboys were looking to extend their lead, Dak Prescott would run a QB draw and would end up dislocating and suffering a compound fracture in his ankle. This would completely end his year, and as a result, the Cowboys had to lean on quarterback Andy Dalton, who they signed in the offseason for this specific instance if they needed a backup quarterback. He managed to rally the Cowboys, and they ended up winning the game 37-34, and they went to 2-3 on the year. This gave many Cowboys fans confidence that, hey, we have a backup quarterback that we might be able to, get into the playoffs with. Going into week 6, the Dallas Cowboys faced off against the Arizona Cardinals on Monday Night Football. This was the first time since 2015 the Cowboys would play without Dak Prescott. Obviously, 2015 being the year that Dak Prescott never took a snap for the Cowboys. This was a disaster. The Cowboys lost 38-10. They ended up committing a season-high 4 turnovers, which all led to the Cardinals scoring on those drives. Dalton threw 2 interceptions, and as a result, Dallas lost, and they ended up dropping to 2-4. This was the first time since 2015 the Cowboys were 2-4, and this 28-point loss was their worst home game loss since they're shellacking against the Philadelphia Eagles 37-9 in Week 11 of the 2017 season, which is crazily enough the tied for the worst loss in AT&T Stadium's history. So the Cowboys are looking to try and bounce back in Week 7 against the Washington football team, Dallas' second division game. And this whole thing went from bad to worse. The Cowboys could not get anything done on offense. They only scored 3 points in the first quarter, and they ended up getting destroyed 25-3. Washington was completely in control of the game, and as a result, Andy Dalton would get concussed, and in came rookie quarterback Ben DiNucci, who didn't do much other than his first play being a solid throw to Amari Cooper. This ended up moving into Sunday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 8 on their third division game. And again, the script was the same. However, in this game, which made it interesting, was the fact that the Dallas Cowboys managed to have a lead at halftime, 9-7. But unfortunately, the Eagles would take the lead and they wouldn't look back. DiNucci lost 2 fumbles, both of which led to Eagles touchdowns. Another involved, I would say this, a highlight of this game was the Cowboys getting 4 turnovers on the Philadelphia Eagles. And this was key because it showed that there were some pieces that, hey, there are some positives that we can look forward to. So at the near halfway point of their year, Dallas was 2-5. And it was the first time since 2016 the Cowboys had lost multiple division games in a single season. Going into Week 6, the Cowboys would now have to start their 4th quarterback of the year in Garrett Gilbert against the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers before heading into their bye. This was one of the craziest games I had ever seen. Why is that? The Cowboys managed to hold a lead on the Steelers for a good majority of the game up until the 4th quarter. This was unbelievable because many people would, like myself, were shocked. The Cowboys managed to score a touchdown in the first time in a long time, but also they were going toe-to-toe against the undefeated at the time Pittsburgh Steelers. And with this, they dropped to 2-7. They suffered their first 4-game losing streak since 2015. And basically, with the loss, it ensured the Cowboys got pushed to the brink of a non-winning season for back-to-back years. And it's the first time the Cowboys would do that since the 2010 to 2013 days. Those rebuilding Romo, Garrett era type of years. So, exiting the bye week at 2-7, the Cowboys ended up going on the road to Minnesota, and to the shock of many, they managed to pull off a win against the Minnesota Vikings. They were 7-point underdogs in this game. They snapped their 4-game losing streak and improved to 1-4 without Dak Prescott. And the game would end up allowing the Cowboys to look like they had some life back in them. All they would need to do is just get a win on Thanksgiving, and hopefully they can get into first place and maybe control their destiny. Well, the Cowboys dropped to 3-8 and were swept by Washington for the first time since 2012. Despite the Cowboys being in the game for a good majority of the game, Dallas lost control quickly. They dropped 41 points on the Cowboys, Washington did, and 21 unanswered points in the 4th quarter. It was just, I can't even put into words how quickly that game got out of hand. Going into Week 13, I don't have to say much here other than now the whole situation changed. Now it was Dallas was lingering in the games, but then they would lose control late. And they dropped to 3-9, and this guaranteed their first losing season since 2015. Going into Week 14, the Cowboys ended up getting a win on the road versus the Bengals. Not really shocking, but Andy Dalton returned to Cincinnati for the first time since being released by the Bengals, and they improved to 4-9 on the year, and this ended up keeping the Cowboys in the race for the NFC East. Moving into Week 15, the Cowboys once again shocked people with a win over the 49ers, 41-33. And then going into week 16, again, another win. After falling behind 14-3 in the first quarter, the Cowboys managed to rally and outscored the Philadelphia Eagles 34-3 in the remaining quarters. This ended up improving Dallas to 6-9 on the year, eliminated the Philadelphia Eagles from playoff contention, as well as kept Dallas' hopes alive for the postseason. In this 3-game winning streak, the Cowboys managed to started to get a lot more turnovers, along with scoring more points. However, this was all meaningless, as in Week 17, the New York Giants ended the Cowboys season with a 23-19 win, and the Cowboys, being eliminated from playoff contention at a 6-10 record, would miss the playoffs once again, also for the first time since 2010, having double-digit losses. They went 2-4 in divisional play, 5-7 in the conference play, and also having a point differential where they scored 395 points for and 473 against. They had one of the worst defenses in team history, as well as NFL history when you look at it. Offensively speaking, they managed to hold their own even when Dak Prescott was out. They managed to keep a, top 12 unit at the time. And this was important. The reason why this was important was because it showed that now the Cowboys were able to, do something, as opposed to previous years. In previous years, for example, the 2015 year, it was bad quarterback play that really screwed them over. In this, it was just all-around bad team play. And the fact that the Cowboys managed to end up 6-10, considering the circumstances, was a blessing in disguise. So, with that in mind, this concludes the seasonal recap of the 2020 Cowboys. It was the best way I could put it was an injury-riddled transition year that resulted in the Cowboys getting a top 10 pick in the 2021 draft, and hopefully they can rebound next year. I hope you guys enjoyed this long recap. If you did, please make sure to slap this video with a like, as well as subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell. That is the most important thing you can do to make sure that you get notified when new content gets out. So, with that out of the way, I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.